I feel like this is just a chance to say, tell us how the season went. I know last year you went on, describe the season. Take us through sort of, in a general sense of how satisfying it is to be sitting here right now, knowing what you accomplished, knowing what you said last year, leading up until this moment.
I think it's easy to kind of focus on the end of it, but there's so much that goes into winning a championship, and the amount of work from the players and the staff, and starting back from all the way back to training camp, which we've always talked about our experience in Saskatoon, how it's important for our team, to get away a little bit, but more importantly for us all to be under the same roof. So kind of starts in training camp, and I think going through training camp, you always kind of get a sense of the team that you have, and you don't have a crystal ball to say, hey, this is going to be a championship team at the end of the year, but we certainly felt confident in our team. And it was interesting. A lot of the players just had a feeling, even from the start. Maybe vocalized it a couple times, but I think there was just a sense of what was to come. But just like any other year, you have to have some luck with injuries, and get guys back at the right time. We had some kind of goals going into the season of what we wanted to improve on, and I think we improved on a lot of those, and I think they helped us be successful. We didn't have those lulls that we had the seasons before where we lost multiple games in a row. I thought our guys kind of bounced back after losses, and just was nice. We talked about it last year after we lost in Winnipeg, that it was overly important for us to get that first place and to get a home playoff game, and you could see the difference that had. Having a home game for the Western Final was a big deal, but really just the players just put it upon themselves, and I think I've said it before, but Corey was really just trying to keep the guys focused on what was right in front of their face instead of what was down the street, and I thought he did just a great job of keeping those guys focused on one game at a time, and trusting the process. And then it really just came down to the players. The players just decided that they were going to, work harder than other teams, and they were going to put more time in, and they were going to come together as a group, and they all enjoyed each other. So it was awesome to see. Front row seats to see something like that is pretty special.
How would you compare winning as a player and going through the trials and tribulations of the season versus winning as a general manager?
It's definitely different. I think when you win as a player, you can maybe drink a little bit more champagne and celebrate with your teammates a little bit more. It's just different. After you win, I'm looking to congratulate all the players. I'm trying to see their families at the the post-game party, and trying to spend as much time possible with my family that was there. So, but certainly same feeling. I wouldn't say it's much different when you win. You're elated to see guys that have fought so hard through the season. You see those guys breaking down, and their parents there that you haven't met, and that's a pretty special moment when you do that. And they had a lot of confetti that was coming down. It was pretty neat to see all that, and it was just exciting.
Do you almost feel like, just to add one more, do you almost feel like a dad of the group in terms of like watching your kids win versus you winning?
Yeah, I think it's a good way to explain it. I really do. I think you look at it as you watch these guys. Some of them you've drafted multiple years ago, and you've seen them kind of grow and develop, and seen them go through injuries and struggles, and you've seen so many of our players add family members to their family with their child's being born, and met their parents and their wives, and so when you do, you just kind of get to sit back, look back, and how proud all those people are for those players. So there is a little bit of sense of that. It's very similar to being a dad.
Jeremy, Trevor said he would have to meet with you at some point, talk with his family about his future. Have you had discussions with them, and anything on the horizon there?
Well, no breaking news today, but we've had discussions. Obviously, Trevor got on the road a couple days ago, and we had a good discussion before he left. But Right now it's that's just the gist of it is a early conversation, and we'd love to have Trevor back, and I think he knows that. So it's just a matter of us getting back on the phone and trying to work something out.
Have you been told by any players that they want to go to free agency or retiring at this point, or no?
Well, we just won the Grey Cup a week ago, so I didn't have any players walk in and tell me that they didn't want to be part of the team. So, but we haven't really gone down the road with all those. In fairness, we're just starting those conversations with the agents. We're just at the end of the evaluation process of our own side of it. So now we're obviously going to have those conversations with all the free agents, and I suspect it would be like any other year where we'll try to get as many guys back as we can. Obviously, we had a good team, but also there'll be some players that we don't get back.
Right. Jeremy, from your perspective, how big of a role did Coach Mace play in the team's success, but also growth?
I think it was huge. I think it kind of starts with him, and him kind of directing the message to the players, and he talked about it when he first came here about developing a culture. It's not really anything you can put down on a piece of paper and just have the guys read it. It's kind of earning their trust, them trusting him, and the players buying into the new head coach. I mean, Corey didn't have a ton of relationships with the players that were on the team when he got here, so he had to develop that with time. And it doesn't take time. Doesn't take long with Corey to see what he's all about. And players love him. He just understands players so well, and I think the respect factor that they have for him also helps that he's really good at his job. Works really hard at it. So there's a lot there to like about our head coach. But he's a guy that sets the message every day. I mean, he's the person that stands in front of our team multiple times every single day, and if you've been around anyone for that amount of time, it's hard to listen to somebody talk for that long all the time, and he gets them every time. So he just has a great feel for the players, and super proud of him and where he's come, how fast he's gotten to where he is. It's just awesome.
Looking at future seasons, how do you see this Grey Cup win, impacting ticket sales, season ticket holders, players returning, just the overall game day experience?
Well, I hope it's good for business. That's for sure. When you're not winning, you can understand why people choose not to come to games. But when you are winning and winning a lot of games, I'd hope that everyone would want to come to the games, and certainly we hope that's the case, that they're going to get behind us like they always have. Their support was awesome. The parade was awesome. So you would hope that the fans get behind the team, which they always have, and hopefully they'll continue to do that. And then with players, it just helps, when you're coming off a championship. I think, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think there's, already a lot of talk about being the first team to repeat. And I think that every team that wins it says the same thing, but it's never been done here before. So I think there's a little bit of added motivation there to our players of, being the first team to do it here would be special.
On this day in 2007, you lifted the Grey Cup in Toronto. If you could go from today back to that moment, what would you tell yourself then?
Well, I tell myself, this is a lot of fun, and how the heck can we do this again? I think in 7 it was kind of a similar situation where we hadn't won the cup in a long time, and I remember being close, and I think not knowing the full impact that a championship in Saskatchewan had until we won it in 07 for me as a player. I think that, even going through this process, I kind of, once we won, I kind of knew what was about to happen, and, kind of try to tell the people of, what the province turns into after you win. But I think I would just, they've all been great experiences. I can't say that one was more special than the other. Obviously, I won one as a player. and as an assistant GM, and then now as a GM. But they're all gratifying, and we want more. And I think that, you know, I've shared that before, that, you know, one of the things that impressed me about Corey was, you know, just his drive already to get more championships here. So and that's not, you know, it's not stopping with just one.
Was at any point this season, was there an obstacle that was overcame, or a milestone passed, or an achievement reached, where you in your mind thought, okay, this is right where we need to be, and it confirms what I've thought about this group?
You know, I think, you know, going into the season, one of our goals is, you know, we've lost to Winnipeg, you know, quite often in big games, and so to say that wasn't important for us to win the series versus Winnipeg, I'd be lying. But you know, I think, you know, winning Labor Day and then going and winning the Banjo Bowl in Winnipeg, I think that's kind of when we had the feeling of, like, we're going to take a run at this. And, you know, then it was just a matter of, you know, winning enough games to get, you know, first place, and then being able to do that a couple weeks before the playoffs was huge. But I think it was probably after the second Winnipeg game.
Jeremy, a couple of years ago, you know, you were when we had this discussion, end of season, you were in the early stages of forming a blueprint or what have you. Could you tell us how that plan kind of came about, that ultimately culminated in what happened in Winnipeg on the 16th? Was there sort of a process there that was integral to this happening?
Yeah, I think, you know, when I was afforded an opportunity to hire a new head coach, you know, my process was very specific in what I was looking for in a head coach, and basically mapped out the characteristics that I wanted for our next head coach. So, you know, once you have kind of what you're looking for, you know, then you're starting the interview process, and you know, having a full cycle to, you know, talk to other coaches and to interview coaches was very, very important. You know, Kyle Carson played a big role in the hiring process. He sat through all the interviews with me, and we talked about process, what was important for us. And really, when I looked at it, I really wanted the coach to be a fit to Saskatchewan as well, right? So I've been here a long time, so I kind of have a knowledge of, you know, what it takes to be successful here, and the characteristics that would fit not only within the locker room but also in the community. And so, you know, those kind of categories or characteristics that those were part of the plan and part of the checks. And you know, as we went through the process, you know, Corey just started checking all the boxes, as they say, and fitting what I was looking for in a head coach. And you know, it was really just about me trying to get to know him a little bit more, because it's tough when you don't hire. This business is a lot of hiring people you worked with or hiring people that you knew or you had a relationship, and that's understandable because you have that trust factor. But for me, it was you know, getting to know him and then talking to people that, you know, that I would ask for advice that had worked with him, and to see what kind of guy he was, and then also, you know, players that had played for him. So all that, you know, kind of lit up, and then the fact that, you know, Corey said all the right things, and nothing's changed. You know, there's no, I don't look back and say, you know, he said this in the interview, and it, you know, everything that he said was, you know, the same way that he is every day. So he's a lot of fun to work with, and you know, ultimately, a big reason for our success was, you know, the amount of players that wanted to play for him as well. And you know, there's players that want to play for Coach Mace, and I understand why. So that's certainly helpful when we go through free agency and the process and all those things.
Jeremy, you mentioned Kyle Carson. How important is that branch of football operations been, or the entire department, when you look at Kyle Carson, Paul Jones, Larry Dean, Jordan Greenlee?
Yeah, for the success of the team, it's enormous. You know, Kyle, and you know, Kyle's, you know, just turned into an awesome assistant general manager and will be a GM when he decides to be. And you know, Paul, who's had, you know, just has a ton of experience and been through everything multiple times, and Larry, you know, transitioning from a player, and then, you know, Jordan Greenlee and our football operations is just, you know, he's just awesome. Does so much for the organization that people don't see, and the players, and you know, just works really hard at his. His phone's never off. He's on call all the time. But they're all, you know, very important, and certainly with Kyle, you know, Kyle has a huge part in what you see on the field. He's, you know, scouting the players in the U.S. He's very involved with the draft, as you know. And just as a hard worker, and has a good football mind, and future's bright for him. And you know, then we have one of the you know, long-time serving guys in Paul that's been with us for a while now, but he's been around and done a great job, and just gets out and grinds on the road for players.
Jeremy, it was reported that Toronto Argonauts came asking for Coach Mace about their head coaching spot. He said it was communicated to them that he's not leaving Saskatchewan. What's that process like? Do they call you, then you say, yeah, you can talk to them, or when that happens, what's that process?
They didn't call. No one asked for permission, so I'm not quite sure where that came from. But when we did hear about it, Corey did tell us that he did tell us that he's not interested in going anywhere. So, but they did not reach out to us for permission.
Okay, and so just, you can probably speak to this more. A lot of people, how have you seen this team and organization become a destination where people not only want to come but stay once they get here?
You know, I used to think, to be honest, I used to think that you just had to have the nicest house on the block, which I'm referring to the stadium. I used to think that, you know, back when we were an old stadium, and I used to say, well, we're disadvantaged because we have an old stadium, and it's, you know, and it is important, and we're very grateful for this beautiful stadium, beautiful facility that we could come. You know, we're privileged to come to work here, but really it's more so about the people that are in the building, to be honest, and that's something I've learned. You know, if you can get them both, it's great, but it's really about the people. You got to have people around you that you like working with, that you enjoy going to work with, but you're also, you know, it's just not all fun and games. It's, you know, we're gonna work hard, but we're gonna enjoy each other, and I think that's the difference. And you know, nothing against any of our old coaches, staff, players, or anything like that, but it's hard to explain. It just, when it comes together, and everyone enjoys being around each other, you just, you know, there's just a little extra that goes into it. You just want to win more for each other than just, you know, just for yourself. And so I think that's what's happened. And you know, very, very unselfish people in the building. A lot of people that deflect credit when they should probably take the credit. And so it's awesome.
I do. Just as a GM, you obviously the clock hit zeros, but how long did you actually get to enjoy the Grey Cup win, and how quickly did your mind turn to free agency, to the draft?
You know, free agency had probably been on my mind before we went to the Cup. You know, so you're looking at it as the year goes on. You obviously have an understanding if you're not looking for the future. So, but I mean, I guess that's not really answering your question. I think. You know, after we knocked down that last pass, it was, you know, I don't want to say I blacked out, but it was chaos. You know, we wanted to get down on the field as soon as possible because we were upstairs. Because you just, you know, you realize that the season's over, but you realize that you just, you know, you won the championship, and so it's elation, it's excitement, a little bit of relief, lots of happiness. And then there's some celebration, obviously, that everyone is well aware that, you know, I think is important. These guys work so hard in what they do, and to get, you know, the opportunity to celebrate a championship that just doesn't come around very often. So, and then you kind of pass the Grey Cup around, and you go back into the coach's office, and then I think you have the parade, and then the next day you kind of hit you with, all right, you're having exit meetings with the players and their contracts are up, and so you're trying to give them, the information that you can, and let them know that, make sure they understand you want them to be back. And then now we're I don't know, we're a week out, and we're already back at it. So it flips pretty quick. I think the coaches need some well-deserved time off, but for us in football ops, we gotta keep working here.
Just, is there kind of like an area of the team where you guys do think that there's some addressing that needs to happen? For me, I maybe look at the receiver room a little bit, because those guys just, the season they had, and Corey all year was like, well, a lot of these guys could be starters on other teams.
Yeah.
Like, is that maybe one position, or maybe it's another one where hey, you guys could lose some guys, and there might be some turnover.
I think it's fair to say there. I mean, you look at the group of receivers that we have, where they're at in their contracts, and we had lots of guys step up and be very good players. Two of the Americans were all-stars, and two of the Canadians could have been all-stars, but they're injured, and they have been in the past. So it's a group that's loaded with really good players, and it's ultimately going to come down to whether we're able to get how many of them are we able to get back. It's going to be difficult to bring every one of the receivers back, just because we have a salary cap, and but I also say that 2 years ago those guys they weren't on our team, right? So we have a responsibility as well to replace players, and if one of our players goes to another team because they have a better financial opportunity, that's kind of out of control. The cap is kind of what it is, and when we look at the roster as a whole, we're going to try to put the best roster available, not just the best couple players. So we'll have some challenges like we do every year. And yes, there's a lot of guys that are free agents, but it kind of happens that way every year, and we know what we're doing.
When you look at the kind of bones of this team, and you said, over the last however many years you lost to Winnipeg a lot, but they went to 5 straight Grey Cups. Do you think the bones of this team has the opportunity, or at least the makeup, to be able to do something similar?
Well, very difficult to do what they did. Not a normal thing to do what they did, but certainly that is kind of the measurement of what you're trying to do. I've always said that we're trying to get home playoff games here. Ideally, a bye before that, but when you can do that, you have more opportunities and to get to the Grey Cup, and that's what you're ultimately after. So certainly think like we have a group that we can bring them back, and there will be some tweaks that have to happen, but certainly feel good about our coaching staff and their commitment to our organization, commitment to Corey. Very excited about that, and then excited just to get going and putting the team back together. It is an exciting part of the year when you can start putting pieces back together, but it's going to be give and take from both sides.
Taylor, and then Rob, and then we'll wrap.
Has Trevor indicated that he wants to come back, or is he still deciding?
Trying to figure out. I haven't read everything that he told you guys,
Yeah.
so I don't. Look, I think we had a really good discussion. I think we'll be talking again real shortly. I don't get the sense that he's done playing football, but I certainly don't want to speak on his behalf. But we're going to have conversation shortly, and as I said, he had a great year and stayed healthy, and finished the year strong, obviously, with winning a championship. So we'd love to have him back. It's just a matter of having a conversation with him, and then once we get down the road, to figure out a contract.
I guess this would be an easy question to answer, but continuity would be the goal after what you guys just accomplished. I know that Trevor and often guys talked about it last year, coming off that West final loss. That continuity, we have all these guys back. How important is that continuity, and is that maybe the main goal as you look at your free agent list, to say we're going to try to bring back a lot of these guys, if not nearly all of them?
Yeah, I think every year, regardless of the situation, you're going to evaluate every position, and that's what we're doing right now. And is there ways that we can even improve on what we did last year? And we do that every year. But the fact of the matter is, we really like a lot of the players that are on our team, and we're going to try to get as many back. When you win, and especially when you win a Grey Cup, it becomes more difficult because everyone just saw us win and how we did it, and saw players play really good football. And there's some teams that didn't have good years that want to add players that come from a Grey Cup team, right? So we understand that, and that's part of the process. And everything gets ironed out as you go, but for the most part, we'd like to have as many as we can have back. But again, a lot plays into that. Where they're at in their career, how important just the financial is. Hopefully there is some importance to, I really want to do this again. And in order to do that, there has to be some, like I said, give and take from the players.
Jeremy, you mentioned earlier that there are some people in the organization who, when praise is being dispensed, they deflect it. When you said that, I thought of Craig Reynolds. Was he one of the people you were thinking of? And irrespective of that, how much credit does he deserve for what has unfolded this season?
Yeah, he's probably the main one I was talking about, Rob. And there's a lot of them that deserve credit for what we've done. But, Craig came into the organization as, a financial guy, and kind of had an impact on everyone right off the bat, just good guy, hard worker, super, super intelligent. Everyone liked him early on. I think I would have been maybe a little nicer to him if I knew he was going to become the president, but no, it wasn't. But I think, kind of what he's had to deal with, the challenges that he's gone through. I think, not a lot of people understand that, he had a humongous part in the stadium. Obviously had a great mentor in Jim Hobson that he got to work with. And then, ultimately got a chance to be in the chair, and difficult first year for him as president, where he had, to go through a challenging year right off the bat, which is probably not what you want when you're first starting out. So had to make some tough decisions, and then had to hire people, and he's basically hired everyone in the organization, and he's rehired me a couple times. But just, his vision of everything and how he keeps everyone motivated, gives praise all the time, and doesn't ever take any, is a really good sign of a good leader. And then, just from my personal aspect, he took a chance on me, and gave me multiple opportunities. And just one of the things probably I'm most proud of is to be able to give Craig a championship. I just think it's awesome that banner is going to go right above his office. It's pretty cool. But he deserves everything he's getting. But he doesn't ever take it. And in this role, there's a lot of vocal people, and everyone has opinions of people, and maybe they talk too much, and they probably don't know as much as they should to talk. So, but the people in the building have a ton of respect for him, and he deserves everything he got, and he's just made history. So
you said that he took a chance on you. Your resume would suggest it's more than a chance; it's a pretty safe bet. Why do you say that he took a chance?
I think when you're, an assistant and you're trying to become a general manager, I think you're trying to look for the perfect, situation, and you never know when you're going to get an opportunity to be a GM. And so it's a little unorthodox when I got hired as a GM, just with the timing and everything like that. And I really wanted to give everyone a fair shake and a fair opportunity in the roles they were at. And, we had a couple tough years, and, in society today, it's always quick to move and quick to make change. And, Craig just was nothing but supportive to me. And, there was never a time that I went to him and said, things are tough. Do you have to make a change? And, you know, we always just stayed open communication, and ultimately he gave me a chance to hire our next head coach and go through, you know, a whole process that I talked about. And you know, he didn't need to do that, and I don't know what the conversations above him were. Obviously they ended up supporting it, and you know, that made this very special, that he easily could have made a change in the role and decided to stick with me. And he same way as I hired Corey, he has you know, certain things that make up a good general manager, and he has the list that he believes in. And fortunate enough, I got to stay and give it another shot, and here we are now.